the timing of this potential deal? We've obviously been in a shutdown for quite a while now. It's now the longest shutdown in history. What seems to have precipitated some movement among your Senate colleagues today? Is it a response to the hostage taking by the Trump administration on SNAP, for example, or on the FAA, or is there some other development that we've missed?
Yeah, we've been hearing rumors and murmurs about this for about a week now, even before the election. And certainly we're all hearing it. People are hurting, but they're hurting because of what this administration has done. This administration has been withholding food from Americans. This administration attacked Medicaid, took health care away from millions of Americans, and now with the ACA subsidies also going after our health care. Soybean farmers are struggling. Cattle ranchers are struggling. Small businesses can't afford to stay in business because of this horrible tariff regime. So people are hurting. And I have met with my federal workers in my district, and that was probably at the beginning of this week. And I thought what I would hear was, cut a deal. Cut a deal. We're suffering. We're struggling. And that's not at all what I heard. What I heard was this man and his administration has been terrorizing federal workers for the last 11 months. You cannot do anything for a bully except for punch back. And so even my federal workers were saying, do not cut a deal that does not include making sure that Americans have health care.
Congresswoman, let me pick up on the point that you were addressing earlier about we are fools if we believe this, which is something that was also alluded to in the reporting from Kevin, which is that this is really going to come down to a promise to address this in December of next year, particularly the Affordable Care Act tax credits. And he's structuring it, or he says the negotiations are structured on a three-bill approach. What is it that is making the Senate Democrats, in your understanding of these negotiations right now, want to believe that this is something that will actually happen with the Trump administration or Mike Johnson a year from now?
Honestly, I can't begin to imagine. I really can't. I am very proud to be in the House right now. We're fighting hard, and I'm certainly proud of my two senators from Vermont that are not entertaining this. I don't know how you can see what Americans have told us now for weeks. They are holding Republicans responsible for the economy. They are holding Republicans responsible for what is happening to their health care and the fact that costs aren't coming down. They see Republicans as completely caving and bending a knee to this president over and over and over again. I do not understand why at this point they would decide to give up this fight when we are getting nothing in return.
Congresswoman, I want to play some sound for you from Face the Nation earlier today. Governor-elect Abigail Spanberger asked about this entire showdown. Take a listen, and I have a question for you on the other side.
Some in your party look at your election on Tuesday and the win in New Jersey and say that is permission to hold the line in Congress and refuse to fund the government or fold on the shutdown. Should congressional Democrats view your victory that way?
Absolutely not. Our victory was a victory that was based on a campaign that was addressing concerns related to costs and chaos.
So first, I want to say I completely understand. She represents in Virginia community that has been completely devastated by these federal job cuts and by actions by the Trump administration, not just over the course of the last 40 days, but going back to January, and that she is certainly feeling pressure on that front to do more for people there. But I do wonder, we heard from Senator Ted Cruz that there was this belief, or at least argument among Republicans, that the second the elections were over, you would see this kind of turn where Democrats were then going to say, yeah, OK, let's open the government. Are you at all concerned that if this is the way things go, and that's the argument that advances here, that's the perception that not just your Republican colleagues may walk away with, but the voters who have supported Democrats, who just came out with so much energy and excitement the other day, that they're going to get that impression too?
Yeah, of course that's a concern. But one thing I want to say, I want to just push back a little bit on my former colleague, Abigail Spanberger, who I adore. She is a very thoughtful and whip smart legislator. She's going to be a great governor. But look, I don't see how you can separate what's happening right now with the shutdown. How can you separate that from the affordability question? That's what we're talking about here. People can't afford health care. Okay? And they can't afford to make it work. They can't pencil it out at home between the rising costs of housing and groceries and insurance. And so it is all part of it. She won on affordability issues. Mikey Sherrill won on affordability issues. And so did Zoran in New York. It's all the same thing. And if we're not using our power to fight for the working class, the middle class, if we're not using our power to fight for small businesses across this country, then what are we doing here? Because this administration is taking us over a financial cliff with this economy.
So Congresswoman, what do you do in the meantime then? Because people are struggling. They're not getting their food stamps. They're not getting their energy subsidies. Their Head Starts are closing around the country. I take your point absolutely that the affordability of health insurance is paramount, particularly for people on the individual market, for small businesses, as you point out. But in the meantime, the administration has taken these hostages and has held back on these benefit programs that also affect affordability. So, how do you weigh those two trade-offs, given that there's a lot of harm being affected in the interim?
Of course, it is so painful for us, every single one of us in the House on the Democratic side has been holding town halls. We've been holding roundtables. We have been meeting with people. I think every single district on the Dem side was in food banks this week. And so, yes, we see the toll it's taking. But let's be clear, who is responsible for this suffering? You've got a president right now who is pitting food against health care. You have a president right now who is partying at Mar-a-Lago, building a ballroom when people are hungry. And so I go right back to that day in January when we were sitting in the rotunda and he was getting sworn in. And who was sitting right behind him? It was the billionaire class.
The airport's all backlogged. That could create its own issues. So that's the state of play right now. We could see some fluid dynamics over the next few hours.
Kayla, what are you hearing from Trump in the White House? You're seeing images of him at a football game right now, commemorating veterans. But what are you hearing from your sources at the White House about their role in these negotiations, what they've pushed for here?
Well, President Trump's thoughts is ultimately the million-dollar question on all of this. President Trump right now is seen seated next to Speaker Mike Johnson at this game, and conversations between those two men are going to be so crucial because whatever is passed out of the Senate then still has to go to the House and then again has to go to the president's desk, and he has to sign it. Don't forget, President Trump does have that veto power, and it would be almost impossible to overcome that. I think one of the major questions that I still have is if the Senate does pass this proposal that has a promise to vote on Affordable Care Act subsidies in December, is there then enough votes in the Senate, 60 votes again, in order for that to be extended? President Trump has talked about his own proposal about reforming Obamacare. He's talked about sending funds directly to Americans. It's not clear exactly how that would work, but we know at this time there's no formal proposal. It doesn't sound like Senate Republicans are taking that up very seriously, but President Trump has been incredibly critical of this program over the years, so it's hard to see him supporting these subsidies in the current form that they are. And
Democrats, look, these quote unquote moderate Democrats can't let Trump off the hook. They can't. He looks bad here either way if you stay strong. Because as we discussed earlier, I don't like some parts of the deal that's at least allegedly being worked over. Again, it hasn't passed as the time I recorded post this, and the details aren't even 100% clear yet, right? But the rumor is that they're basically going to reopen the government, and then the Republicans pinky swear promise that they'll have a vote on extending the healthcare subsidies and the healthcare plans that Democrats have been fighting for, when we know Republicans won't do that unless you force them with leverage that you only have right now during the shutdown. And as noted there, Trump's against the ropes here. Either he looks weak, because the deal that's being negotiated apparently doesn't include Trump. They've just totally sidelined him, right? And that's not how Trump wants to operate. Trump's not a let Congress do its thing president. Some presidents are like that. Trump isn't. So when Trump say, I'm going to meddle in Congress day-to-day type president, and then they make deals without you, you look particularly impotent, right? But then you add in the fact that the Democrats have a bargaining position here. One, Republicans can't move without them. Two, Republicans are divided increasingly. Three, the Democrats are defending objectively popular things. Americans generally don't like starving and want healthcare that isn't pay through the teeth expensive. And that's what Republicans are offering. But the big one is the election. The election a few nights ago, where Democrats, yes, some centrist Democrats, but also very progressive Democrats, they won up and down the ballot, coast to coast, in red states and blue states and purple states. Even some of the races they didn't win, they were much closer than they have any business being historically. Democrats came close in some deep red areas, and deep blue areas that the Democrats were never going to lose anyway. They did much better than Harris did, and the Democratic equivalent did in the last general election. Democrats have the bargaining power, and they need to stick it to Trump because he's trapped right now. Now, here's the thing. You've been fighting. You've been protesting. You guys went out to vote. Let me know in the comments if you went to No Kings or you voted in this recent midterm election. You've been fighting. You need a Democratic Party that fights alongside you.